But the best was this in Canada, that sometimes during the winter there's remote hospitals and they send them by dog
Yeah,
sled.
my dogsled.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Brian, and this is Amy News and Conversation. I'm here today with Ralph Basile and Sue Klacik, which are, I guess you guys are some of our very long-term major movers and shakers in the sterilization standards world. So we're going to sit down today and talk about some of the work that WG40 has been doing, Working Group 40. But before we do that, why don't you introduce yourselves? Tell us who you are and what you do.
So I'm Sue Klacik, and I am with Healthcare Sterile Processing Association, HSPA. I'm one of the clinical educators, and I have been their voting member for over 25 years. And it's been a pleasure and an honor.
Yeah, Ralph Basile, and my title I can never remember because it recently changed, but corporate standards executive, I think is what it is. It's for HealthMark, which it was recently acquired by Getting Us, or Getting a company. And I've been involved with standards. Amy started with Amy. I think I'm either in my 23rd or 24th year because I can't remember exactly what year I started. But been very pleased to work with Sue over those years, and then so many great people, Amy's staff and our colleagues on the different work groups.
For sure. And I should note that, Sue, you're also the current co-chair of Working Group 40.
Yep.
What is that working group focused on?
Well, right now we're focused on TIR 109, and that's a technical information report. And it's on the external transportation of healthcare processed items. And it's going to talk about both sterile packages and also the contaminated items coming back to healthcare facilities. So it's the external transport of both of them over the public roadways, which is
pretty interesting.
It's pretty interesting and getting to be larger and larger.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're going to talk about today is packaging integrity, why there's this extra focus on it these days. And let's get right into that though. Why are we concerned about packaging? I'm used to seeing medical devices packaged up. It seems like we've got business as usual. So why does it need to change?
Well, I mean, first of all, there's sterile barrier packaging or sterile barrier systems. And so that's the packaging is intended to keep the items that are in it sterile. And we basically think about it of two different categories. There's items that come from the manufacturers already sterilized, and the manufacturers, the medical device manufacturers, spend a lot of time, money, and effort to validate that items are sterile and that they're going to be delivered sterile to Sue and her colleagues at the hospital. And then there's a sterilization of reusable devices in the healthcare facility themselves. And oftentimes it's the same kind of packaging that's being used in the hospital that's going to be used for the single-use devices. And similar processes, but ultimately what we're concerned about, right, is delivering a sterile product to the patient
all the way through.
All the way through.
Yeah, right. So it could leave the manufacturer or could leave the sterile processing facility as sterile because packaged appropriately, but somewhere along the way something goes wrong. What normally goes wrong? Why would it become unsterile?
Well, we're not sending it outside the hospital. So no longer is that package in a controlled environment. It's actually an uncontrolled environment. And so now it's exposed to the environmental elements, rain, fog, hot days. So now it's a little bit more challenging for the package. And some of our concerns are taking the package from a nice, cool environment in the summertime and then taking it outside where it's really hot. So now we have the extremes. And what effect does that have on the package? It could result in moisture on the package, which translates into contamination. Some of the other issues that we're concerned about that we're actually finding out through the committee work is when we send the package over the public roadways, they're no longer in a smooth road or smooth transport. In a controlled environment, it's now over a public roadways. We know all public roadways are not smooth.
Especially if you're from Detroit.
Yes, yeah. And it's uncontrolled. So now, we have the issue of the temperature, the humidity, and the shock and vibration that we need to deal with, which is a lot different than what we were dealing with inside of a hospital.
And something I've read is, at least back in the day, these packages didn't really need to travel all that far, maybe from one facility to another, or from one department to another. Why has travel distance and I guess where it's going along the way, why has that changed?
Yeah, well, yeah, no, great question. But just to back up for a minute, because if a manufacturer is making a device, delivering it sterile, they do all kinds of testing to simulate transportation,
That
because
travel, I'd
man, it's
imagine.
traveling a long
Yeah.
way, maybe around the world even, or certainly trains,
Mhm.
planes, and automobiles. There happens to be an ASTM test, the standard, but test methods
Mhm.
D4169. It's like if you get a packaging engineer, not packaging engineer, their eyes will make it, they bright. And it's otherwise oftentimes referred to as a shake, rattle, and roll testing.
Okay.
This is again to simulate delivery of the product to the hospital.
Yeah.
But what we don't do as industry is simulate what happens when the hospital now has taken out of the packaging that it was delivered in and now shipping it over the road. And we're learning,
Yeah.
that it's going through processes or being affected in a way it wasn't when it was staying inside of the healthcare facility. And then maybe
Yeah.
just talk about centralization of sterilization and why we're traveling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a couple of reasons for that. In hospitals, they want to use that space. The hospital may have a certain footprint,
Mhm.
and they want to use our space for more direct patient care. So they may put sterile processing outside the building. Also, ambulatory care centers. A lot of them now are sending their items to the hospital. Some call them the mothership, the main.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and so they're sending their items to the main hospital for processing. And there's also satellite facilities that a hospital may have.
Mhm.
That's perhaps they're doing some scopes, and the scopes now need to be sterile. And the sterilizers, the low temperature sterilizers, are pretty expensive. And so they may just be centralized at one location, which that centralizes the expertise, and also, all the other resources are in one location.
Which sounds advantageous in most cases. but
Absolutely.
I guess they're not thinking about
Absolutely.
packaging.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, and again, this is so Sue, with TIR 109, this is really the first effort to really look at this closely, and address it, right,
Mhm.
with improved practices and pay attention, and between the sterile processing professional in industry and testing labs, and we're really learning from each other.
Mm.
One, we need to address this as a community,
Yeah.
recognize it and address it, and really TR 109 is a document to provide best practice in that area. So.
And for our viewers who might not know, a TIR is a technical information report. So we're talking about a document here that's almost a reference document, right? To
Correct.
better understand how to manufacturers might make more robust packaging, but also this also impacts the user side, right? We're talking about sterile processing departments, how to better transport the packaging
Yep.
or how to wrap it up better.
And the people receiving it
Oh,
at both ends, right? Because we
Right,
spend a lot of
right.
time, the document spends a lot of time talking about the transport and then also the reception,
mhm.
whether it's to the area where the procedure is going to be done or back to the mothership where
Yeah.
it's going to be processed.
Interesting. Something also that comes to mind is I can imagine something Amy News has been talking quite a lot about is home health care. More devices winding up in people's homes that we haven't seen before. Is that also a factor in this case where packaging is going where they don't expect it to go?
Not in TIR 102. That is an opportunity for a new work
bring up.
item.
Yeah.
We have talked about it. It's an area, actually, the industry in general, because it's not the packaging is a big deal, right? I mean, you have to have packaging that's in one way easy to open, or that
Oh, yeah.
but then also safe. Let's say if they're children or whatever, and then even just people then delivering care. I mean, we all just went through this with COVID tests, right? We had to learn how to open up.
Exactly.
I mean, those of us have been opening up sterile packaging for a long time.
Right.
We knew how to open it up, but for many people, it was the first time they had to open something like that up and try not to contaminate it. So you're asking a great question. I think that's an area opportunity for
Yeah, I
future
think
work.
so.
Yeah.
This does highlight the whole purpose of having groups like yours, which is to think these hard questions and
Yeah.
dive into it more. I wanted to go back to the TIR though, because at the end of the day, reference document coming out soon. Hopefully it will help people better understand what things they may not have considered. TRs tend to be supporting documents for large standards. In this case, I'm thinking of ST79. That's the Comprehensive Guide to Steam Sterilization and Sterility Assurance in Healthcare Facilities.
Glad you wrote that down.
Yeah, right. It's always a mouthful. Is that the end all be all? Is it only supporting that document, or is there more to it?
Well, also ST91, the flexible endoscopes, once again, some of the scopes require sterilization, low temperature sterilization. So they will go to the mothership to be sterilized. And also ST58, which we are working on, that also has a role in that because we're talking about low temperature sterilization and disinfection.
I also wanted to highlight, Ralph, you're part of the Kilmer Innovations in Packaging Group, which is a lot of really cool ideas, cool research is coming out of there. It sounds very relevant to the work that's going on.
And Sue was a very important part. A member of that as well. Well, it was actually kind of happenstance because TIR 109 had already started, and then KIP formed out of the Kilmer conference that was in Dublin in 2019, and a few of us got together in a room and talked about opportunities, challenges related to packaging. And out of that grew the KIP group, and it's very much, I would say, it's very much aligned and a reflection of AMI. There are a lot of members of AMI that are part of KIP. But we started having these conversations, and terminology was a huge thing.
Terminology, and you know what else? Repetitive handling.
Repetitive handling was something else.
And that, again, there was no research on that.
Right.
And that group took it and ran with it and did a great project on it.
Right. Yeah. They simulated again one of the things that came out of it, which again, a packaging manufacturer, a device manufacturer is not simulating that a package is going up to the OR, the procedure area, and coming back maybe dozens of times. It's just the packaging engineers weren't aware of it.
They weren't
part of their testing and the studies, and now there is some work along those lines.
Yeah, it was a great collaboration. It really was. And so we took that research, and part of that is now also in ST 109. We talk about, putting the items in totes to reduce repetitive handling.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Sounds important. And I want to sit back, and we're not really talking about just placing the burden on the manufacturers here, but we're also talking about guidance for how to move these things more efficiently without causing problems. This sounds like risk mitigation.
Well, we're all about risk mitigation in healthcare. Yeah, you're exactly right. And again, as we were talking about KIP, and then also within Work Group 40 and developing this document, it's a recognition that we all have a piece of the responsibility to deliver. Ultimately, the goal is to deliver safe, ready-to-use devices to the patient, right? And we all have responsibility.
We do.
That's fantastic. We're talking about responsibilities here, so I wanted to jump. Are there any calls to action for the working group? Anything coming up? Next steps?
Well, we are hoping to finish this document by the end of the year, and we're still commenting on it, but we think we're close to the end.
That's
but
exciting.
we've just learned a lot. And again, it's been collaboration, healthcare facilities collaborating with industry, and we've learned so much from industry, such as how to monitor. When we first met as users, we're like, well, how do you monitor a truck? And the manufacturers have said, well, we've been doing this
for all the time.
And what was a bonus we found out is that it's not that expensive. It's not hard to do, nor is it expensive. But it's a great tool. It's a great monitor. So when we do send our products from one facility to another, we know now that we can monitor the temperature, the humidity, and the shake and vibration. And so then we know it gives us more history about the product, and it would alert the user that maybe something has occurred here that is not beneficial for the patient.
I mean, we've seen healthcare facilities really start to invest in, say, the kind of transportation vehicles that will really protect the device and the sensibility. That's one area.
So one of the stories that we had heard when we first sat and talked about how do we send products from one facility to another, we did hear a lot of stories. We heard about, the taxis, the cars, the vans, New York.
The bikes.
Somebody calls Uber.
Yeah, because maybe it's an emergency and they have to get
Oh
it.
my gosh, yeah.
New York, someone said, well, we do it by bike. And when I've been in New York, I do see bikes with little boxes, and I wonder, what are they transporting? Then we had a gentleman who said that he was in the military, and they actually send it by helicopter and they throw it out of the helicopter. But the best was this in Canada, that sometimes during the winter there's remote hospitals, and they send them by dog sled.
Yeah, by dog sled.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one's gonna anticipate that.
No.
No.
We haven't developed a test method for that yet.
No, but
No, that's fantastic, and that really highlights this exchange of information and why it's so important. So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to the completion of the document, but I also wish you luck as it continues on. And
Yeah, I mean, as we always say, there's always opportunities for
Yeah.
improvement. I mean, that's again, participating in AMI and developing standards. Our goal is to improve practice, and that's job security.
It is. It is.
And I guess a call to action too is anybody's interested in this or sees other areas. You're asking about home health care, for instance, because there where there are opportunities for improvement. AMI is the organization to come to and to try to get that ball rolling. And AMI is so good at bringing stakeholders together. So
They definitely are. They definitely are. One more thing about this document, and we've been talking about packaging. The other side of the coin is that when the items are used at the facility, they're considered contaminated and they have soils on them. And this was another Kilmer issue.
Yeah.
So we were at Kilmer and we were talking about this, and one of the research scientists there, Tara Kramer was there, who is a wonderful resource, and she is a co-chair. She co-chairs the Water Quality Working Group 95. But so we were talking about this, and we said, well, let's do some research on the effects of temperature, time, and humidity on soils as far as soil dry time. And there was nothing. So Tara took this up, and she has done absolute amazing research which shows the effects of time, temperature, and humidity on soil devices.
Yeah.
So that helps all of us as as far as a healthcare facility. I know how to protect the items from soiling, and it helps to make sure that the medical devices are still going to be in working order, because we don't want those soils to dry on it, because it can actually deteriorate the medical device, the finishes of them, and it makes it harder to take off. So she's done an amazing job with that. And my call to order is if you are a medical facility, don't let the soils dry. Whatever you can do, do not let the soils dry.
And they'll now have a document soon that they can reference and say, okay, here's how we avoid that.
Yes.
That's beautiful. And I'm hearing a trend here with this working group in the work that you're doing. There's a lot of first ofs going on. And I think it goes back to that exchange of information. So it sounds like get involved.
Yeah,
help
it's
with
a
that
great
exchange of
collaborative
information.
community. It really is.
Awesome. Well, Sue, thank you so much for explaining that and helping us. Ralph, it's been great talking to you about this, and I hope you both enjoy the rest of Sterilization Standards Week.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you having us.
Yes.
Awesome.